Well, good evening or possibly morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Barrage This Podcast. Can't believe it's been 3 weeks? Actually, 2 weeks, but still time flies since our first podcast. One Punch and Done here along with Coach returning, and boy, do we have a surprise for you. We have with us one of the biggest swoop channels, SWU channels, currently on YouTube. Well, whether it's his silky smooth voice, his knowledge of the game. He has 8 other towers that have come before him, and yet you know him, you love him. Ladies and gentlemen, TowerNumberNine.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Great, man. Love having you, bro. Very excited that you had the time to come and hang out with us. Hopefully we have a nice, great back and forth. And, people who watch you, people who watch us, hopefully they're all in the same in the same circle, and this is fun for everybody. So again, really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
I guess really quick, if you would, I would love to, if you tell us a little bit about yourself personally. Me and Coach are meeting you for the first time right now. We'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, specifically, I guess, something. I guess I don't want to before we get into the nitty gritty, I'm curious personally, where did you get your start in the card gaming scene? Where did you start playing card games? Was it something that you've been doing for a very long time, or is it sort of like a new endeavor for you?
Yeah, I'd say I'm definitely a card gaming veteran. I played like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon when I was a little kid. And following that, I had kept up with Magic the Gathering to some degree on a casual level. And at one time, some friends and I had done some kind of themed decks for Magic the Gathering. I think we did a draft, but we were very focused on the different guilds from the Ravnica set, if you remember that one. And at that time, I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe I'll take this kind of casual deck that I had built and been enjoying with my friends and see what it would cost to make it into the competitive version and go to some tournaments. And it was a lot of money. It was hundreds of dollars for this one deck. And I remember thinking, shoot, man, for that price, instead of just having one deck, I could buy every Netrunner card, because Netrunner was on the LCG model and had just come out relatively recently. And I was like, shoot, I'd rather have a place out of all the Netrunner cards. So that's kind of how I got into the LCG world. And so then I played some of the LCG games more competitively than I'd played Magic or Pokemon or whatever. So I played Netrunner, Warhammer 40,000 Conquest LCG, Game of Thrones LCG, though I didn't like that one as much, Legend of the Five Rings LCG, and several of these I played actually very competitively. So the one of Star Wars Unlimited's senior designers, Jeremy Zwern, is actually someone that I met in person because he beat me in the finals of Conquest Worlds in 2014.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, it was a great game. He was a very skilled opponent, and it was great to talk to him there. And, now he's one of the designers for this title. So, that means maybe less competition if I'm going for the World Championship this time.
That's fantastic. Wow. So you got a lot of history with, and so you have a very long ongoing relationship with FFG. I did not know that.
Yeah. Not all the games I've played have been Fantasy Flight games. So the card game that I was on most recently, before Star Wars Unlimited, was actually Flesh and Blood, in terms of games that I played competitively. And that's by Legend Story Studios, which is a small company out of New Zealand. But I've also played some other tabletop games. I've done some miniatures games. I was on Star Wars Legion for a while, which was another Fantasy Flight title. In general, I've played several Fantasy Flight games, and I think they've had some pretty good ones over the years.
I'd say so. Wow, yes. So I think that's a little interesting for Coach to hear too, because he's a Warhammer 40K player himself and a Flesh and Blood player as well.
Yep. Who do you play in Fab, Coach?
I'm a Bolton guy. I love my fundamentals in every game. Yeah, dude, I love Paladin. If there's a Paladin class in any game, I will jump on that ship so fast. D&D, like World of Warcraft, anything like that.
Are you a Raiden Bolton man or a Sabers Bolton man?
I want you to guess.
Ooh, let's see. You said you like fundamentals, which would make me lean more towards Raiden, which is kind of a more mid-rangey deck. Sabers is very combo. But so let's guess Raiden. Which one is it?
You are correct. Raiden is my go-to weapon. Nice two-hander, just swinging around and absolutely crushing. That's one of the big things about, having such good fundamentals and playing warrior in that game, and even Star Wars and any card game or any game in general, is once you have the fundamentals down, they can't just beat you because they have a better deck. They actually have to beat you, and they will have the edge from having a better deck, but you have the edge from having the greater skill.
Yeah, I played a lot of Dorinthia in Fab. And I was on the Dawnblade Dory plan, which I think is another one of those ones where if you don't know what to do against it, it can just blow you up completely. It can be very brutal.
Yep, I think episode 1 we talked about, my quote unquote sister getting coached by me and getting to go to nationals in Minnesota here, and she's playing Dory, and that's why I told her to play, because it's all fundamentals, and I coached her on the basics of card games, basics of things. I saw immediate things that she was doing wrong, and coached her on it, and then she's a lot better now. Made it an Nats, so that's good for her.
Yeah, good for her. I haven't really been playing Fab more recently. Star Wars has kind of taken my card game attention, but I have some fond memories of that game back in the day.
Yeah, same here.
I love that you guys have that in common. I'm totally ignorant of everything you're talking about, except for the Dorinthia. Except for Dorinthia, I actually know she has the Dawn Blades. If I'm not mistaken, I dabbled very, very little bit, but I quickly found out that game is. I personally, I think it either hits your right or it goes right over your head, and in my case, it went right over my head.
It's a very complicated game. I will say that. Yeah,
a lot of nuance, and utmost respect for the people who really find that game out. But yeah, there is so much going on and it seems like there wouldn't be, because it's like, how many cards can you really design around, a thing that says deal 2 damage and go again? But lo and behold, there's a lot of creative space apparently for that game, and they're continuing to make cards. And if I'm not mistaken, if I'm correct here, is the Dawn Blade, it's like it hits for 1, but if it hits, it's a real problem for your opponent. They don't want it to hit because you can get way more combo oriented if it hits even 1 time. Or am I completely wrong?
Nah. The Dawn Blade hits for 3, but if you can hit somebody twice with it in a turn, it gets a +1 counter. And so then next turn you're swinging for 4, and it can keep scaling up. And if they can go a turn without you hitting them, they can reset it. But once those counters start adding up, it gets harder for them to reset them, and sometimes you can kind of balloon out of control.
That's what it was. Yeah. So I remember it's something you wanted to block it. I just remember that.
Yeah, that's right. You really, now if you had a really super fast deck, you could just race, but usually if you just raced Doria, she would keep getting more powerful, and that was not what you most wanted.
So have you, not to change subjects or change gears, but Universes is like another game. I don't know if you have any experience with Universes, but it's also like a one-on-one pick a character and do attacks type of game. Did you ever get into that?
Universes, that name sounds familiar, but I have not played it.
I think Universes is what they also call like the Magic expansions when it goes into other universes, like Lord of the Rings universe. But Universes,
like Universe Beyond or something.
Right, Universe Beyond. Universes is a game, most notably the most recent set that really got its attention back was the My Hero Academia set that came out, and I think they're up to like 5 or 6 My Hero sets, but it has like a lot of anime stuff, Cowboy Bebop. It's another nuanced game, very, very complex at its core, even though like the base game is pretty simplistic on its face, but if there's so much going on, there's so many words, so many cards in play at all times, that the nuance really separates the players who know what they're doing. You can have the best deck in the world, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to lose to somebody who really doesn't have great cards, but just knows how to use them to their full effect. I do like the high skill sorts of games. A lot of Fantasy Flight's past games I think have been in that category. In L5R and Conquest there were just a lot of L5R was very complicated. Conquest was less complicated, but it still had very important decisions, and you could
You could get into a winning position pretty fast, even against someone with a stronger deck if they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, I'm noticing. Did you, by any chance, did you play the Lord of the Rings LCG?
No, that's one of the co-op ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I only played the competitive LCGs.
Fair enough.
And I didn't play all of them, but I played many of them.
Yeah, fair enough. I have the first LCG that got me into board games was the Lord of the Rings ones. I'm such a Lord of the Rings fan. I would, do you like Lord of the Rings outside of the whole like card gaming thing, just in a vacuum? Do you like Lord of the Rings, like the whole theme?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lord of the Rings is cool.
Yeah, I would, if this had been a Lord of the Rings game instead of Star Wars, I would have been so hyped for that too, though I don't know how big it would have been. Lord of the Rings, a lot of Lord of the Rings hype has died. I think Star Wars is still going pretty strong. But it's cool to see that you have so much experience with LCGs. Netrunner is something that I always actually was looking at, but I never really got into, but something that always looked cool to me. And that's just a game basically around like hackers trying to hack into like government. I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering the whole theme of the game, but that's basically at its core what it is, like the runner versus like a corporation who's trying to defend information.
Yeah, it would be corporations rather than the government, but it was that one was really interesting because the two sides of the game played completely differently. So runner and corp cards were totally separate, and you actually when you went to a tournament you would have two separate decks, and the corp would be trying to sort of defend themselves and like build up this structure and make it risky or expensive for the runner to get through, and then kind of advance their plans and win the game. And the runner was trying to steal that information by getting through various parts of the corp defenses. It was a really interesting game. The fact that the two sides were so different is both part of what I think made the game so cool, but it was also in some ways kind of a weakness, because I had some friends who really liked the game, but they only liked one side of it. Like there'd be someone who was really into being the runner or really into being the corp. And then, when the time came to go to a tournament or something, they wouldn't be that excited because they would have to play a bunch of games on the side that they didn't like. At tournaments, you had to have a runner deck and a corp deck. So, it was kind of a unique and interesting facet that I really liked, but some people were not fond of it.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, being a asymmetrical type of game that, yeah, you kind of have to, especially if you really like one side, it's unfortunate you have to play a side that you don't. It's like playing a character you don't want to play almost, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
If I were, you could say this game's asymmetric too, but it's nowhere near the same thing. Like I might be playing, maybe I'm playing my Sabine red deck and someone else is playing, Krennic green. Like the amount of overlap in those cards is not all that much, and it is asymmetrical to at least some degree. But at the same time, we're both using cards that interact in like broadly the same system. Whereas the runner and corp and netrunner are basically playing different games, and they don't even have like the same card types. Generally.
Yeah, and they specifically are created to counteract one another too, right? Like yeah. So like the runner would have the runner could install programs that did various things. So some of them would like get you money, or some of them would maybe, give you access to more stuff if you broke into the corporate servers. But a lot of the programs, the only thing they did was fight against corporate defenses. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. Go for it.
No, I found that part so intriguing to me. The ice putting defense down in front of, and I love the idea that you're defending your hand, you're defending your deck, your discard pile. It's not open knowledge until the player actually has to interact with, if you have any defenses, they have to go through there. And man, I think Andrew Garfield, the designer of Magic, created that one.
Richard Garfield.
What did I say? Andrew Garfield? Did I just said the Spider-Man actor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that guy's an actor.
Jesus. Okay. Richard Garfield. Richard Garfield. Yeah, same guy. But unfortunately, even though I know it had a lot of people, like a big backbone to the community, never really found the same success that Magic did. But I guess nothing really ever found the same success that Magic did, no matter how good of a game it is. Coach, did you have anything you were trying to say something before?
Yeah, this is a little off topic, but have you guys ever played Aeon's End? It's a board game. Aeon's End.
Don't think so.
I've never played
if you guys like getting creative and dark deck making, not dark making, deck making, Aeon's End is an amazing game, and I bought like I own every single expansion for it pretty much. And you guys should definitely look into that, or if any of the viewers on here are looking into board games, and a lot of people like board games and Star Wars and, you know, being nerdy, then Aeon's End is a game that I highly recommend. The core set is like, you know, really cheap, but that game is so amazing, and it's co-op based, and you're trying to take down a monster. Essentially, he's trying to defeat all of you and defeat your base. That is one of the best board games I've ever played, and it reminded me of you guys talking about the hacker versus the corporation.
Cool.
I'm looking at pictures of it right now. It looks cool. It actually looks very intriguing.
Best board game I've played.
I tend to often be a more competitive player when it comes to the tabletop gaming. I haven't played that many co-op games, which is funny because I have enjoyed a bunch of co-op games on like I don't know. Just earlier I was playing some Helldivers too, and so I'm not totally averse to co-op. But for whatever reason, the tabletop games that I've gotten most interested in have often been head to head.
You're a thinker. You're a chess player, and then I think a lot of what, you know, the joy for it is that whole, you know, outthinking an opponent thing. To me personally, I don't play competitively all that much because I don't put myself in the same category as somebody like you who takes it so seriously. I don't think I stand a chance when it comes down to it. I don't really, and that's what this podcast is for. People like me. I think there's much more people like me than people like you, and that's definitely not a slight on you at all. That's saying that there's a lot more generic players who play the game, and they're not going to find the best combos. They're not going to find the most, you know, optimal plays, but would love to learn those things from somebody like you, like Coach. Coach is another person like yourself who really enjoys that whole part of the game. Very logical thinkers, and just picking your guys' brains and figuring out how you guys think. So maybe someone like me could figure out how to maximize their efficiency in these games.
Yeah. Speaking on that, like the new Vader deck that we all heard about, right? The blue Vader, blue-red Vader with like that Sentinel guy and I Am Your Father, that whole combo, and him winning the 5K. That whole deck was actually sitting in my lap, but I don't go to tournaments. I also live in Canada, so it's not really like I don't have the opportunity to go to these things unless I want to play a whole flight and book a hotel for a few days out of the country. But generally, that deck was sitting in my lap, and people on the Discord when I first joined a month ago, you know, they hated the whole I Am Your Father. I mean, even now people don't like it. But in any other card game, a pay 3 to draw 3 pretty much is huge. And I understand in this game it's less valuable because you draw 2, you resource. The game ends pretty quickly unless you're, you know, playing against Ida and Red or something. But yeah, that whole deck was sitting in my lap, and then it won, and I came online talking to my friend, and I'm like, why are all these prices going up? Like, why are you playing Vader all of a sudden? And he's like, oh, you didn't know, dude. I'm like, no, like what happened? He's like, oh, I didn't, like, Vader won with this combo. And I'm like, yo, you know what? That's so funny because I have this deck right next to me. So I think, a lot of people like
ahead of the meta there.
Yeah, a lot of people like us who sit there, tinker around, we will come to the same conclusions. And one of the big things I'm not a big fan of at the moment with the Star Wars community is how, and this is like overall in every other game, but how fast people jump to, you know, this card spiking in cost, and they're just jumping from one deck to then another, and from one card to another. And all they want to do is, I don't know, win a box or something, and they want to just jump from deck to deck, trying to catch on to like what's the top tier, rather than mastering the deck that they like or the character that they like. And some people do stick to their Chewbacca's, their, you know, whoever, but like Luke's and Vader's. But a lot of them just think that they're losing the game because they don't have the cards needed, or they don't want to theory craft or craft something good. And they'll like set it aside and they'll just net deck everything. I hope to see that change in the future with set 2 coming out, a lot more cards. But at the moment, it really is a turn off that everybody just jumps to something so fast. I believe that lieutenant guy went up like from $1 to like $5, $6.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Chodson.
I had two of
I think
I hope he did.
I think if someone wants to just get whatever the deck is that won the most recent tournament, and then another tournament comes up and they want to get that deck and they just jump between all of them, I don't think, it's like you said, I don't think that's as good an approach as picking something and getting good at it, because I think there are these situations, and this kind of gets back to, I actually listened to an earlier episode that you guys had recorded, and this gets back to the thing where it's like, how it's not just the deck, but it's also how good you are at using it. And you would probably rather be someone who has a very masterful command of one deck rather than someone who has, like, I think you were talking about, like, having the 1-star rating across a large number of decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hit.
And maybe having the 1-star rating on the best deck in the game is better than being an expert on a deck that's really bad. But a lot of the times, it might not even be true. And furthermore, I think that people can often get a lot of benefit from specializing. And in Fab, there were people who were well known for being specialists on specific heroes, and some of those people had serious impacts on at least their local meta. I remember talking to someone from New Zealand, and there was a well-known player named Cale McCreath who played Bravo in that game. And I remember this other guy was telling me, hey, I actually have 2 different sideboard plans against Bravo. I have one against everybody else, and then I have one against Cale, and they're different because the way Cale plays it is so different from normal Bravos. I have to have like a different game plan against him.
Yep, 100%. That's like, so we didn't go deep into that episode about it, but yeah, skills, like the deck's skill flooring and skill ceiling pretty much. Like when a new person enters, I also follow Josh Lau, and they do this as well, and to talk about it. And the floor of a Boba Fett deck can be deck's extremely powerful, so the deck kind of makes up for it no matter what. But for example, I use the starter deck Vader, and I talked about this in the previous episode. If I'm just using the Vader starter deck with like an additional copy of Resupply and Super Laser, and I'm beating people who have 3 Vaders and like 3 Boba Fett's. And in that podcast I mentioned for a little bit that somebody who got like really upset because he played Vader after Vader after Vader, and I took out all of his Vaders, I took out his leader, took out his Boba Fett, and I crushed him, and he got really torn. He was like, how are you beating me and you don't even have Vaders? Like, he just didn't comprehend the game on a fundamental level, and I basically took him really easily. And so having the most expensive cards, having the best cards, it's not nothing, but like if you're not using those cards effectively, someone could easily beat you with better stuff. And you see that a ton in limited. In limited, you might be the guy who happened to pull that Vader in your first pack or whatever, and like, hey, good for you, it probably does give you some advantage. But at the same time, you could be beaten by someone with a deck full of commons and uncommons who's just playing that deck better. Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing why people, some of the top players, even in Magic the Gathering, the pros, they love to go to draft because they get to build their decks out, and they get to use their like fundamentals understanding of the game and the cards in the set to actually punch through. And some of them just don't lose draft ever because it's flawless, and they can really play around all the cards that they have and make a unique deck that works in every single case, and understanding the meta of like what is in the deck for commons, uncommons, and also like rares. Something that this game probably hasn't gone into too much. And I believe you also sent a video out on YouTube about draft, right?
Yeah, I've played a lot of draft. I'm a big fan of draft.
Yeah, I didn't watch that video, but I was about to click on it one of the days.
No, I've been I've been playing a lot of drafts. I've had a lot of success in local drafts. I wouldn't say I win all the time. I have not gone undefeated in every draft that I've played or anything, but I think to be honest with you, I think I have gone 3-0 or 4-0 or whatever in a large majority of drafts that I've played. And I think some of draft really has a lot of different aspects to it, because there's like your drafting strategy, the actual deck build, the gameplay. There's just like a bunch of different things that go into it, and I find it a really interesting and cool format. And actually, I would be drafting in about half an hour. But the store that I draft at on Wednesday nights has, I think, run out of having enough packs to keep doing drafts. So until they get their next shipment or whatever, I think they're just doing a kind of casual constructed night instead. Yeah. I am less excited about that, so I'm here doing this interview.
Unfortunately, at my locals, I have 2 booster boxes. Yeah, I've got 2 booster boxes sitting on the shelf at my local store, but no one's bought them. No one's come into the store to buy anything more from like the first week. So I don't know how long this game is gonna survive in my locals.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, around here, most of the stores are sold out completely, and some of them kind of put some boxes aside to do prizing for organized play and to do limited, but others have run out of packs for draft and stuff also.
Yeah,
I know in the past FFG had obviously like a big problem with supplying product, and their games have really been hurt. I know Destiny was one of them that really felt the impact of not having enough product. And even though they did better, a very common thing I hear nowadays is, it was just way more. It was. The want was so much greater than expected. We just couldn't keep supplies in, and it's like, that's great, we understand, but it could hurt the game. And I just feel like this is like another game. Like I played Lorcana for a little bit, and product was very, very, very few and far between with Lorcana. It was very hard to get product in that game. And it was even in Targets, Walmarts, and so people were able to not just go to their local game stores, but go to these bigger suppliers and yet selling out. Whereas to the point where like Walmart and Target had to actually like stop selling them right where they used to sell them, like by the cards where they usually are. They have to, people have to go to like a desk now and get 3 at a time because they were so popular, which I believe was partially this is all due from the 2020, obviously from the pandemic, where collecting cards really, spiked in value and everything. Because before that, it was a pretty healthy hobby, I think. FFG, in terms of Destiny, that was a one-off thing, but that happened during the pandemic too, I think, where they finally shut down altogether. I don't think they were planning on doing that. I don't know the story behind Destiny. I'm not going to get into it, but my point is, to have a healthy game, though, products should be readily available. What are your thoughts going into set 2? Do you think this is something we're going to keep seeing? Because if the numbers keep growing, I don't see how this is a problem we can avoid.
Yeah, so there's an interview, or it wasn't an interview, it was one of the live streams with, I believe, what's his name? I believe it's Jim Cartwright, I think his name is. And he said at that time that, he gave some information about the stock that they have available. I think he said that they had printed more of set 1 than the entirety of all Star Wars Destiny products combined for that game's whole first year. But that despite printing such a high amount, they had still mostly sold out in about a month, and they still have some left, but they don't have a lot left. And so they're, rationing that out to stores in, I think it's something like 3 boxes per month or something like that, which is not a ton of product. And I believe it's designed to support organized play rather than that being something that just goes straight to the shelf. But in that same message, Jim did say that that they were able to increase their order for set 2, and that they were also going to maybe roll that set out in waves to try to keep a longer window of availability. So my hope is that it will be a better situation than set 1. I note that Lorcana's first set was like a disaster in terms of availability, like much worse than this was. But Lorcana, from what I can tell, has gotten into a more stable situation supply-wise. And so it is possible for these things to get better in the long term. And I'm hoping that with Star Wars Unlimited, we'll be seeing Shadows of the Galaxy as already quite improved with respect to product availability. But, we'll have to see how that goes.
That's a good take. I hope so.
Speaking of Shadows coming out, so I've seen your shorts on your card reviews, and something I wanted to ask was, you seemed very neutral in reviewing your cards in terms of, like, when I saw, I think the green card, the 1 cost is something Assault, the one that lets you ambush.
Oh yeah, that's a good looking card.
Yeah. So in your short, it seemed like you're very like tame about it in your response or your review of it. Is that something you try to do, or is that something that just is that your neutral like go-to style of?
Yeah, I usually try to be. I usually try not to be like, oh, this card, I think there's this tendency online for people to be like, oh, this card's the best. This card is broken. This card's crazy. I can't believe they printed this card. Or on the other side, oh, this card's garbage. It's trash. This card's a coaster. I don't know why they're wasting our time. Like, I try not to fall into that and go for the extremes. So I usually have a more moderate take on these cards. Now, I will say there are some cards, I think it was, I think when Regional Sympathizers was previewed, I think I explained pretty frankly that I thought it was a bad card. That's the one that's a 4-cost 3/4 with Restore 2, and that's it.
The flyer? Was that the flyer?
No, it's a ground unit. If it were a space unit, okay. Yeah. But yeah, there is a 4-cost 3/4 with Restore 2 in space, which is Razor Crest, but it also returns an upgrade from your discard pile to your hand when played, and I think that card's actually going to be quite good. But there are a few cards that I've highlighted as being bad or as being really good, but I usually try to take a more moderate approach.
Yeah.
I think I don't like the polarization of everything's perfect or everything's garbage. I like to try and keep it keep it less extreme than that.
Yeah, I wonder, how did you feel when you were listening to our podcast when we were reviewing the cards? Because I know I go pretty like straightforward into it. I think I'm not saying there's no place for saying like, hey, this is bad, this is great, etc. Like, I'll be one of the first ones to say that Overwhelming Barrage is an excellent card, and actually Overwhelming Barrage is a kind of warping card in some ways, because uncommon means it's more prevalent in limited than I personally would like. And it's interesting because I don't think it's a totally broken card or whatever, but I think that the limited experience would be better if Overwhelming Barrage were rare or legendary. Just because that would mean that it's not seen as frequently. But I still think that Star Wars Unlimited Spark of Rebellion is a great limited format. Did you find any of the takes that I had or we had on the podcast on the new cards coming out? Because it was a very like maybe long-winded or in-depth conversation on some of the cards. What did you take on some of the things that we said? Or anything that stood out?
I listened to this a little while ago. It was before you had contacted me for this interview, and I think there were one or two where I notably disagreed, but unfortunately I don't remember what they were. I'm sorry. I think by and large it didn't seem like totally off base or whatever, though. I think that I think people who are experienced in other card games often know some of the it's kind of like the fundamentals that Coach was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of fundamental stuff, and there's like you look at some things and it can be different. So like card advantage in this game is not as valuable as in some other games, but you can look at some stuff and be like, I'm not entirely sure that this is going to be good. And if you have an understanding of like the cost curve and like what sort of stats are good at different values, sometimes you can look at something and be like, okay, these stats are bad for the cost based on what other unit stats are in this game, and the text doesn't seem like it's very good, and therefore I don't think I'm going to use this unit very much. And of course, there are also some cards that might not make it for constructed, but might actually be good picks for draft, with the generic cards that have no aspects being especially relevant. So like Underworld Thug, 2-cost 2/3 ground unit, no text. That's in a certain sense an objectively bad card, because you can get 2-cost 2/3s that have relevant abilities, or 2-cost 3/3 no text for Battlefield Marine or whatever. But in a draft format, that Underworld Thug has the advantage that it can go into any deck. So if you don't know what aspects you're in yet, taking that Underworld Thug might allow you to stay open. Whereas if you take a Rebel Pathfinder, which is the same thing but with a relevant ability, and then you end up playing Villainy, well, all of a sudden your Rebel Pathfinder isn't much good, while the Underworld Thug could have been used in that deck.
Yep, 100%.
That's a good point. Funny story, when I played my first draft experience, I've never played draft before. I only played it actually once, because by the time I was done playing, like, the draft ended and then basically they immediately started constructed the next week. But I went to my first draft event and everyone was passing around, the first pack, and the kid gets the pack and he gets it from the guy before him, and he looks at his cards and he's like, what you just gave me? And he's like, no, what? And he just turned around, Boba Fett unit card. And he's
wow.
like, and the kid's like, I was just trying to build my best deck. I didn't even notice. It was the funniest thing. He was building like a hero blue card deck, and he totally just dropped the ball. He's like, I would have taken the card just to have it. He's like, oh man, I feel bad. I mean, I'm gonna take it still, but I just wanted to show you. Oh,
yeah, that's the issue of value drafting, and at most local events, some people might get mad at me for saying this. At most local events and even some larger events, value drafting is correct.
Yeah,
you have to, like, you can't not pull a hyperphase Vader and not take it, like.
Yeah.
So like Boba Fett, Boba Fett Disintegrator is a let's look this up. Because I know there have been some price changes.
Is he 60 or 80? It's like 60, I think, right now.
60, I think his meat is $65.99 is, I think, the cheapest on here. Market price is $17.23.
Went up $6 since last night.
Wow.
Yeah, I see a slightly cheaper one maybe here on TCG Player, where there's someone selling it for about 61, but at the same time, 60, 70, whatever it is. It's like, yeah, this is a draft. Like, a lot of the local events that I've had have been pack per win. So, each match that you win, you get a pack. So, and usually that's like a 3-round event. So it's like, maybe you get 3 packs. Mm. Like, the value of 3 packs is like $15 or something. And like, you could say, oh, well, the market value is higher. Okay, let's say the market value of a pack is $10, which I'm not sure if it is, but even if it's $10, that's, so there's 3 packs is $30, which is still less than the one Boba Disintegrator at like 60, whatever. And additionally, it's not as if using one draft pick on a card that's bad for your deck is going to cause you to lose 3 games that you otherwise would have won. That's very unlikely.
Yeah.
And so usually the value draft is correct. And I have totally value drafted and gone 3-0. I had a recent draft where I was playing Han. I think my first pick for my first 2 packs was a value draft in both cases. I think one of them was Command, which is a legendary card, and the other one was K2SO, which is one of the more valuable rares. Neither of those were in the final deck, but I was still able to go 3-0 with that build. So, value drafting is usually correct. Value drafting is usually correct even at larger events. Some people think it's like dishonorable, or that it's not the way draft should be played or whatever, but I think no, you go for it when the time comes.
Yeah, just a thing that exists and you have to accept it, pretty much is how I believe it to be.
If you're not taking the Boba out of that pack, you're a fool. At that point, you're right. Is it a dishonorable thing? You could make an argument.
I don't totally blame someone for trying to make the best deck that they can. That is one way to do it. And an event with really big prizes, that might be what you want. Like if it's World Championships or something, maybe that's what you do.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think you value draft when the time comes, personally.
Yeah, like for me, it's more so I rather have, if I pull a Boba in a pack, like obviously I'll probably take it. But if it's a prestigious event where I want to win, I want to win the draft no matter what, that's my goal. And I do this in Warhammer a lot. I'm going to aim for the win. I don't care about whatever. Now, if it's like a $400 card or a showcase, okay, I'm taking that shit like every day because that's worth more money than anything I'll get. But sometimes there's that I just want to win the event and be known as, the best player in my scene, rather than losing a game and then, people can hold that against me as, oh, you didn't win this one week.
Yeah, I think in Flesh and Blood World Championships, they've had draft as part of the Worlds format.
Yes, like you have to draft and play competitive to actually.
Yeah,
score.
Like you do like a draft pod and play 3 games in that, and then you do a bunch of constructed games, and then day 2 is the same thing or whatever. And at Fab Worlds, yeah, maybe you don't value draft. I mean, the prize for the prize for first place at Fab Worlds is like $100,000 plus valuable promotional items. And, maybe in that situation, if the choice is a card that's worth $100 versus a card that is way better for your deck, maybe you take the better card. But most events are not Fab Worlds,
Yeah, most events are go try to open something good.
Yeah. And also, there are some people who, do you guys know what rare redraft is?
I do not.
No.
So rare redraft is an alternate way to do prizing for draft events. And the way that it works is after you do the event, everyone combines all the rares that were drafted and you do a new draft for the rares only, with the first pick going to whoever won the event.
Yeah, so I haven't.
I personally really dislike this because I think it's very negative for new guys. But some people think this is a more pure format to mitigate value drafting and hate drafting or whatever.
Yeah, so in Magic, I've done that. I've gone to an event with drafts. I've done that, and we had to write down all the rares we got in our booster packs, and pretty much put them in the middle, and then they would write it down, whatever, and then we would continue drafting. And at the end of the day, all the cards would be accounted for. But that's that's back in the day, way back, and that's also when people would just walk out if they pulled a Liliana or something like that. Because there's no reason to stay if you pull a Hyperface Waiter, you're gonna walk out the store.
Just leave the event so that
because that is because you will just leave the event, go play at a different card store or whatever. And the fact is, $400 is $400. You can't not, that is for just somebody that might be a huge bonus that they just are broke or something that they need, So I do understand about people doing it, especially most of us who play this game. We don't have $100,000 sitting in the bank. Maybe the top tier players or someone who makes a large income, but for the general public, we don't have a lot of money sitting around. So I do understand wanting to keep that card, but I understand the other way. That's why I prefer sealed, to be honest. Just for this whole reason. This never comes up in sealed. You get what you get, you build your deck and you play. Yeah,
I think
I like the draft dynamic a lot. I do like draft more than sealed, but sealed is cool as well. Sealed's a really good format for pre-release also.
I didn't get to play in a sealed event, but I do look forward to set 2 sealed. In a 100% honorable world, I wouldn't actually mind the rare redraft, because if everyone's gonna play correctly, and be honorable and not leave with the rares, and you do really well. But I can also see it being very, like you said, disgruntling for a new player, who even if he maybe he didn't have the best showing, maybe he went 1-2 with his, but he got a boba out of the deal. He still feels pretty good about the night. But imagine going 1-2, and then you got to give your boba back. Someone's basically going to take the rare card that you found, legendary card that you found, and that they're going to take it. So you go home with nothing but a sad story.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it is pretty sad.
You said you played Pokemon too back in the day?
As a little kid.
Yeah, as a little kid. Yeah. Was it how, if you don't mind me asking, how old you are?
How old am I now? I'm in my early 30s.
Yeah, I'm 33, so I'm wondering if you're you're my generation, right? You're 90s kid.
You're all old, brother.
Yeah, so that was when Pokemon was first coming out.
So I'm asking because I went to, I don't know if you had the Toys R Us leagues back in the day. Did you have those?
Nah, I mean we might have had them, but I wasn't playing in them.
We did in my place. So.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I went to one showing and I thought I didn't know how to play the game. I thought I did. And needless to say, it was one of those moments where I'll never forget. But some kid actually he gave me a deck that he had. He was really nice. It was a Machamp deck, and he's here, and he showed me how to play, and I had a lot of fun that day. But no, I had a Charizard, and I was I brought my Charizard, but no Charmeleon or Charmander, so I couldn't evolve into him. I didn't know how to actually play the game. But I was wondering if you said, did you have any competitive experience with that game? Outside of...
No, I didn't play Pokemon competitively. It was
gotcha.
I would play it So I collected Decipher Star Wars CCG when I was a kid, but didn't understand the game and scarcely ever played it. I did play Pokemon with my friends and stuff, but I wasn't going to tournaments. I wasn't, doing drafts, anything like that. Purely casual.
My experience is completely different as a kid.
Gotcha.
If you heard the first podcast, you know.
Yeah, you guys are a lot more similar than I actually had realized before, though. I mean, there might be some differences, but you guys like the same games. You're drawn to the same things, and you guys have that same like logical mindset. I could get that from talking to both of you, but different personalities, which is good. I think you guys kind of bounce off each other well.
Yeah, one of the things that I say is, even if you are somewhat opposite, it's kind of like Superman and Lex Luthor. Even if you're complete opposites, you're a villain. If you're operating at the same level, right, they're both at the top of their game. Even if you have huge differences, Lex Luthor and Superman both have respect for each other. So that's pretty much how I sum it up.
Here's a question for you, Tower. Mace Windu. I have a hyperspace Mace Windu. It's going up in value. It's seeing itself in some, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rebel, like Rebel red white decks, obviously. Do you see this card getting better set 2? And if not, or what do you think this card, what will make this card, in terms, because the price is going up, so it's seeing a little bit more play, but obviously I don't think it's at that level where it's like it's busted. But are you seeing a future for this card? Do you think that this card's gonna, because I feel like they designed this card specifically for something, sort of like Black One. I think the one that when it's played, when on attack, you can discard your hand and draw 3 cards. 6 cost 4/4 or something. Stats are really bad, but like the effect doesn't seem much better. But it's like, why are you designing a card to do something so poor unless there's something coming in the future that we don't really see yet, and that it'll have, like, me and Coach were trying to kind of think of different effects that would make these cards good. Like, for every card that you discarded this turn, give an experience token to a unit or something. Like, that would be busted. You have 5 cards in your hand, you discard them, you draw 3, you just give 5 experience tokens to a unit. That would be busted and would make Black One such a strong card. Mace Windu's got a great ability, but I don't know. What do you see a future for this guy?
Yeah, well, I don't know for sure. I don't know what cards are going to come out in the future, but let's talk Black One first. So Black One, 6 cost 4/4 space unit, and you discard when played and when defeated, you discard your hand and draw 3 cards. Or I believe you may do that.
It's defeated. Okay, yeah, yep, and then you have the choice.
So Black One. Black One is already a good card in a few decks, but it's very situational. The 2 decks that I have seen it have been Red Han. So in Red Han, because using Han's leader ability creates card disadvantage, you often go low on cards in hand, and you can play Black One to kind of refill. The other one is actually a Cunning Sabine deck that Rebel Resource, another content creator for this game, had introduced me to, where that deck is playing Sneak Attack, which is another card that kind of intrinsically creates card disadvantage, and additionally it has a very low cost curve. And then again, playing Black One kind of lets you refill, and it also lets you dig, because that deck is trying to just get deep into its cards to get For a Cause I Believe In to close out the game in some scenarios. So in that build, Black One's ability to, dig in 3 cards into the deck, and then maybe another 3 when it's defeated, can get you to the cards that you need. Now, that's a relatively niche application. I'm talking about 2 decks that have a very specific thing that they want to do with it. But not every legendary is going to be Jedi Luke or, Vader commanding the First Legion, where they're just very strong in a lot of situations. Some of them are going to be a little more situational. Now, I do think there is also room to grow. So one interesting thing about Black One is that I believe it's actually the only card in the game right now that has the resistance trait. So the resistance is sort of the rebel faction from the sequel films. And I think it's very possible that future sets will go into that in more detail, and that we're going to see some resistance synergies that might make Black One more appealing. Will it happen for sure? I don't know. Now, when it comes to Mace Windu, that's actually a similarity to Black One, which is that both Black One and Mace Windu have a trait synergy that isn't really supported yet. So Mace Windu has the Republic trait, which I think is there another unit that has the Republic trait? For some reason, I want to say there's like one or two others, but I could be wrong. Anyway, the Republic trait doesn't do anything right now, but it probably will in the future, set 3. And the Jedi trait might do more in the future as well. Mace Windu, I don't think is as good as Black One in necessarily right now. I don't know of any deck that's playing it all that competitively, but I do think a lot of room to grow. Force, Jedi, Republic, all traits that could have synergies. And I don't think Mace Windu is terrible. I just think he's kind of overshadowed by the other 7 cost cards. So the right now there's a cycle of 7 cost cards that are all somewhat similar in that they are all powerful units that kill something when you play them and then like stay on the board to do something else. So that includes Jedi Luke, Vader commanding the First Legion, Han Solo, Count Dooku, Mace Windu. And of those, I do think Mace Windu is probably the weakest one, because his advantage of readying after defeating a unit allows him to be kind of a more aggro option in that category, and can also be really strong if the opponent has large numbers of small units. But at the same time, aggro decks often don't even want to go to 7 resources. So I've seen aggro decks where the most expensive thing in the entire deck costs 4. And if you don't want to go to 7 resources, having a like aggro card of that type isn't all that good. Additionally, it doesn't seem like there's that often the situation where you have a very large number of small units so you can keep attacking, defeating things, and readying. I have seen stuff like that happen. Like I've seen him get like 3 kills and still attack the enemy base, which is really strong, but it doesn't seem to be the usual case. Maybe one of the cooler things I've seen with him is using him with Jin. So if you have Jin deployed, all the attacks that he makes reduces the defender's power by 1. So in that sort of situation, you get potentially many more opportunities to use him by just taking less damage each time. However, overall, I'm not that thrilled with Mace Windu. If we see an aggro deck that wants to resource more into the late game, I think that might be a scenario where he might see some more play. And I think we could also see some more play with more synergies and stuff for him in the future. But right now, I don't love the card.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at Magic the Gathering in red. Maybe there's a card that just says gain 2 resources for this turn specifically. Kind of like those mountain cards where you pay 3, you get 4 resources.
Yeah.
Turn, or a card that just says take damage because it is aggression. Maybe you just take damage, and you gain resources some way.
Yeah, that could be cool. I know that. Interestingly, I think maybe the best deck for Mace, other than Jin, would be Han Red can use Mace Windu and bring him out often like 2 turns early. If you do the 5 resources, use Han to go to 6, deploy Han, attack with Han to go to 7 trick.
Yeah, the Casino Han.
Yeah, although you can do a non-casino version of it. So specifically Casino Han refers to the version where you hit Ewing reinforcement to play cards out of aspect.
Oh, the green one.
Yeah, and I think if you play like a normal Red Han, you can just play Mace Windu normally and it's good.
Yeah, I think Red Han some people were talking about how it's the best aggro deck, basically versus other aggro as well, because Han is almost at that level where he is a Boba Fett competitor in terms of resource management and how fast he can push cards.
Yeah, I think Han has some. I'm not sure I would say he's the best aggro deck. I'd have to do some more testing. I think Han hasn't been as popular as like Sabine or Leia or whatever. But the if you're playing Sabine or Leia or some other deck and you start out with a Green Squadron A-Wing and Han creates a temporary resource, plays the Millennium Falcon and kills your ship, that's not a very good position to be in.
Yep. It's very awful.
And yeah, so he can do some interesting tricks with that accelerated resource.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to leave you without getting your opinion on 2 of the cards that dropped today, some of the spoilers. If you don't mind, love to get your opinion on the new Doctor. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah, I don't either. Evazan something.
Yeah.
So Dr. Evazan, really interesting card to me, actually. So this dude, so looking at him, so he has a he's a 2-cost 3/3 cunning villainy ground unit. He has shielded, and he also has a bounty of ready up to 12 resources, which is I think that's a little Star Wars fan reference in some ways, because when he confronts Luke in the cantina in Star Wars A New Hope, he brags about how he has the death sentence on 12 systems. So I guess, if you take him out, you get paid by 12 different people or whatever.
I love that flavor.
So I think he's one of the strongest cards. I think he's one of the strongest cards in the game in the early game, at least in some matchups, because 3/3 shielded is a super good stat line. So like right now, Battlefield Marine, which is a 3/3 vanilla, no text, is extremely strong and is, very widely played. And at least in the decks that can support it. And so this guy is actually even stronger than the Battlefield Marine. But the problem is, readying up to 12 resources is a major benefit for your opponent in some scenarios, especially in the late game. And it makes this guy kind of risky because, let's say you play him early, and then turn 2, your opponent plays Power of the Dark Side and kills him, and then they ready all the resources they just used, and they get to play something else also. Yeah. That does not feel good. And I think right now, I do think that he would be very strong and he would be widely played in the present environment. I think we'll have to see whether or not there are other good ways to deal with him, maybe via early removal or capture options that make his downside too severe. But as it stands, it looks like a card that's kind of high risk, high reward, but overall the reward seems worth the risk to me, at least right now.
Is there a way to... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Coach.
Oh, I was going to say... looking at this card, I don't know how they're gonna do it. If I capture a bounty card, I get the bounty, correct?
Yep.
And then if I just get rid of my own card to kill that thing again, I would get the bounty again, or just keep duplicating it over and over again. Especially if I can bounce my own cards to my hand, or other ways to go about it, essentially.
Yeah, conceivably. So like you could capture him and then he could escape, and then you could capture him again. That exactly. Is something
and
that could happen.
It'd be just turbo whatever. Also, the way that the game is played right now, where everybody kind of plays a single card, and all these like control decks just blow up the card immediately. If you give a control deck the option to, or even Boba Fett the option to bounce this and recover all of his resources that he just used for free in Boba Fett on top of that, or save his leader ability to the next card that gets played. I think this card, I think the opposite way, where this card is really nice on paper and it's going to be really aggressive, but the way that I view the game at the moment, it's just the double-edged sword is more of a just, you're going to lose really badly with this card in your deck, unfortunately.
I would say two things in response to that. So the first one would be that I believe bounce effects do not trigger bounty. It would trigger Boba's ability, but bounty says when this unit is defeated or captured. So if you play like a waylay on him, I don't think you get your resources back. You would get one resource back from Boba.
Yeah, that's fine. I generally was just talking about like the kill spells in the game or ambush.
Oh, okay. Like yeah. So then the other point would be that the shield that he gets does mitigate that to at least some degree. So there are some kill spells that will kill him through the shields. Like if they play takedown on him, then, they can kill him through the shield and get their resources back. But at the same time, if you look at like the Iden Red, or the Vader Blue, those decks do have Power of the Dark Side, which is a good card against him, but they're also running Open Fire, where if you play Open Fire, it's going to bounce off the shield. And maybe you attack with an early unit and he kills it, and then you play the Open Fire, get your resources back, and play something else. Totally possible. But I do think that's going to make it a little more difficult for him to just get removed. And then actually I do have one other point, which is in some situations you're going to be able to use this ability to waste his, or to use the way you play this guy to waste the bounty, in my opinion. Like, let's say you play this guy on turn 1 and the opponent had some other unit, and he ends up taking out that unit and loses its shield. Then the opponent plays another unit. Going into turn 3, you could attack into that unit that they just played and die. And then if this guy is taken out and all the opponent's resources are still ready, they don't have anything too ready, so the bounty gets wasted. And I think you're going to be able to maybe play around it like that a bit. to lessen the downside. But I do think he's going to be extremely risky to play later in the game. And even early in the game, there are going to be those times where he does just get hit by the power of the dark side or whatever, and you end up feeling the pain.
Yep. Is there any ways to hinder this guy? I'm thinking like ways of like, entrenched gives him +3/+3, but it also he's not allowed to attack bases. Is there a way to like permanently hinder the attack and defense right now? I'm trying to think of because
Hinder, so
like make him weaker permanently.
I don't know of a permanent one. There are a lot of effects that give someone like -X for a turn. Mm-hmm. One thing that you could do that is just go to space and let this guy hang out on the ground arena until you can defeat him with a more expensive card, at which point you get all your resources back.
Yeah.
But in that situation, you could still punch the base. Entrenched is a good option, which you mentioned earlier, if you are planning to go to space. I think it's possible that in the future we'll see debuffing upgrades, but I don't think we've seen those yet. Aside from entrenched, which is part buff, part debuff.
I would like to steal upgrades. Also, this goes back to calculated. What was it called? Calculated something. My favorite card. That card could kill this guy, and then just take the upgrade as XP onto myself. So.
Oh yeah, that calculated lethality is a sick card. So you can.
I love that card.
You can play that, kill this guy, give an upgrade to one of your units if he still had his shield, and then get all your resources back as well. So the fact that it cost 4 to kill a 2-drop doesn't matter.
Yeah, huge swing.
I think calculated lethality, by the way, is going to see a lot of play.
Yeah.
So
that's a big card.
For people who might not have seen that one, that's a 4-cost event, Vigilance Villainy, and defeat a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less. For each upgrade that was on that unit, give an experience token to a friendly unit. That it's just such a good count. So like right now, one play that is commonly made and really good is, someone leads off with the A-Wing or the Marine or Sabine or some other 2-cost aggressive unit. Then turn 2, 3 resources, going to play a wing leader, 2 experience on that unit, and start pushing 5 damage or whatever. And calculated lethality means you get to defeat that unit, and then the experience that they gave it is now going to be a way to put experience on your own stuff instead. And I think it's going to see widespread play.
Likewise.
Totally agree.
Yeah, likewise. And then this, I was trying to think of combos too. Like, I know Mandalorian's going to be in the starter set. Instead of a debuff on this guy, like this doctor, not to go back to him, but really quick, if you you're playing Mandalorian, and I don't know if there's a cheap Mandalorian cuts, but I'm saying technically, if you were ever to attach the Mandalorian rifle, and this doctor, Evazan is, if he's ever captured by that ability, you basically played that card for free, right? It's a +3 so you get to ready all your resources back up. And now he's on your side of the field. So if he ever dies, this guy goes back out there, and it's later in the game now, where if you do have hard removal, you can actually find a way to, let's say you have 8 open resources, then you hard remove this guy later in the game after Mandalorian dies. This guy comes back out
absolutely.
on their... and you could find a way to hard remove him again, ready all your resources up, and you got a big turn, big swing.
There's some really brutal stuff. I was thinking earlier, what happens if you play this guy and have him later in the game, and the opponent plays Count Dooku and kills him and then gets 7 resources back? That is not what you want to see.
Oh, yeah, that's big too, exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, I think the best use for him is in the early game, where he can kind of bully other early game cards. And even if your opponent defeats him and gets the resources back, they don't have all that many resources to get back in the first place. But as the game goes longer and people have more and more resources and access to some of those bigger later game cards, it becomes so much more risky, because you do not want the opponent playing Count Dooku or Jedi Luke, defeating this guy and then getting all the resources they used on that big card right back. That is not where you want to be, I think.
Yeah, that would put yourself in I think it's worth noting too that he is cunning. So is he susceptible to your own waylays, or is that only enemies? It's like worst case scenario.
You could waylay him. Yeah, you could waylay him to prevent the opponent from getting a chance to get the bounty and then resource him next turn or something.
But does that throw you off a lot of tempo?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be playing waylay on your own guy normally.
Yeah.
Another interesting one though is that you could actually play Cunning the card. So Cunning the double aspect event has one of them is return a non-leader unit with 4 less power to its owner's hand. So you could play Cunning, return the Doctor, and like exhaust 2 enemy units or something, and then at least you're getting some tempo instead of just playing a card against your own side.
Right, yeah. Well, he is a rare also, so he's got to. I'm guessing they give these rarities based off of how the play testers have found the usages. I don't know. We'll have to.
I think rarity is based in part on complexity in this game rather than just pure power level, because there are some commons and uncommons that are extremely strong. Like,
True.
I think Battlefield Marine is a common. I think 7th Fleet Defender is a common. Some units that are just huge staples, like not just in limited, but also in constructed play. And then if you look at the cards that are rare, they tend to have more complicated abilities.
I agree. Even Fifth Brother is a uncommon card, and the higher the rarity, the more complex the card is, the more unique it is. Like, some of them are not even used at the moment, but hopefully in the future.
That's a good point, fellas.
Yeah, uniqueness tends to be an upside in this game also, in my opinion. It seems to come with more stats or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any. I'm trying to think if there's any. Are there any bad rares that come to mind right now? Because the
Bendu,
Galactic Ambition.
Galactic Ambition,
bite your
Bendu.
tongue. Bendu's amazing. No.
Galactic Ambition is rare and is extremely, extremely situational right now.
Don't worry, it's gonna glow up real fast.
Oh yeah, you know,
it's gonna be one of those cards, man. We're all waiting for it. It's gonna be huge.
Yeah, let me think about it. I mean,
even right now, you can play it on turn 6, right? I'm playing Avengers.
Having played a bunch of drafts, I have often been in a scenario where I pick a common or uncommon above a rare. That's not even that unusual to have happen.
Yeah,
I think there are definitely better commons and uncommons than rares. I think it's the exception though, not the rule. Where like just because it's rare doesn't make it good. But like if there are, you know what I mean? Like rares are I think more often than not better than the commons, like on average. I think like but. Obviously, the commons and uncommons in this game are, and I'm glad they did that, because if the commons and uncommons in this game sucked, it's gonna be one of those games again, gatekeeping, $500 decks, on it's that it would just be ridiculous.
Yeah, we're already there with Boba Fett.
True,
okay.
True.
Yeah, Boba can be quite expensive. General Krell is a rare and is really bad right now, but I don't know. In set 3, maybe they'll make Droid Trooper tokens and he'll become really good.
Hey.
Yep, tokens something that's people are talking about.
My prediction, which could be wrong, is that in set 2 they're going to introduce token units, and there's going to be a 1/1 droid B1 battle droid token, and there's going to be a 2/2 clone trooper token. That is my prediction. It could be wrong.
What makes you say that?
It's just something that I think would be very thematically fitting, because in set 3 the theme it's called Shadows of the Republic, and the theme is kind of the prequel and Clone Wars era. Token creatures are a popular mechanic, and it would seem to me to be very fitting to include them on both the heroism and villainy side. And so I think that the 1/1 battle droid and the 2/2 clone trooper would be a fitting way to do that. I could be way off base, but that's just my little prediction.
Yep. I definitely think they are definitely trying to hide a lot of things from us, aka a lot of those leaders, and the mechanic, and they're kind of slowly releasing the more hot stuff as we go forward. And they did say there's 10 extra cards in the new set that they did say they're tokens, so maybe it is tokens for droids and stuff.
To be clear, I don't expect the token creatures until set 3, because they've already discussed the new mechanics for set 2, and they aren't. I believe they said it was going to be bounty, capture, and smuggle are the new mechanics for set 2.
Yeah.
And so that does not include token units,
mechanic.
but I do think for set 3 token units may be the thing.
It'd be interesting.
Want to get your
Who knows,
opinion?
though? You know, these guys know more about game design than me. Maybe they're going to throw us all for a loop with something really cool and unexpected.
Well, they haven't really let us down so far. They have a great game here, and so many people love this game. I'm hearing nothing but. I go to my local game store, and there's these guys who are like almost like snobbish levels, where they're just like, every game that comes out, they're like, that's, you know, they're Magic players. They've been playing Magic all their whole life, and like nothing really impresses them. And even they're like, this game's got something. It's something. I hear nothing but good things. They're telling me, and I'm like, it really is a great game. You should honestly try it. And they're like, no, I've spent my life savings in Magic. I'll never go, but I just want you to know that I support it. It's a good game. Good for you. Huh. I would love to get your opinion on this 2-cost Pike Sentinel Vigilance Villainy 2/3 Underworld Sentinel card that we got released today too.
Yeah. I am less excited about the Pike Sentinel compared to Dr. Evazan in terms of being a like splashy card, but I don't think it's terrible. I think it might well have a role in certain decks. So right now, it feels like a lot of decks are trying to play a fair number of 1 and 2 cost units just to have something they can play on the first turn that will be effective. And the Pike Sentinel, 2 cost 2/3 Sentinel, it's not the best stats ever, but it's not like bad stats per se. And if this is going to absorb an attack or two in the early game and allow your I think it's going to be better for kind of a later game, more control-oriented deck, or maybe a deck that has some kind of valuable support pieces that it wants to be able to protect you from attacking.
Inquisitor.
I don't know if that's going to be. I don't know what that deck's going to be, but if there were a version of this guy that was, for some deck that had a lot of those little utility units like the Alliance Dispatcher or Bail Organa, that might be good. Right now, those units are heroism. So it might not line up with this villainy unit, but it'll be interesting to see what the future holds. I also just think, Sentinel can be handy in a lot of situations, and it makes the card a little more relevant into the late game than some others, just because, you might have a 10/10 unit, and if it doesn't have Overwhelm, it might have to attack this Sentinel. So maybe this guy is what you need to just buy you a little bit of time.
Yeah, I really like this card because I think Sentinel is one of the big key words that you see when you first open up your starter deck and you look at the game for the first time as a competitive player or any player, and you're like, okay, Sentinel, this is a big part of the game, which I think most people will agree with. And this card in my Inquisitor deck, I want this card so bad because I play this, I swing for 2, and now the person has to swing into this rather than my brother or whoever else I play on the second turn.
Ooh, yeah, good point.
And this is a huge benefit to me. And I've got 600 games on Inquisitor, and this is something that I really want really badly.
Nice. Yeah, the main downside that I see to it is I think you are going to have some games where the opponent leads off with Sabine Wren Explosives Artist or with Battlefield Marine, and if you play this guy, he just gets killed and the enemy unit stays alive. And that is unfortunate, but I still think that there's going to be enough situations where this is effective that it will probably still see a fair bit of play, even in some constructed decks. And I think that in Limited, this guy is looking very solid.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, in the blue, and just being in Vigilant, where they tend to go late game anyway, and that's like most of the designs are around controlling the board and to, like you said, to kind of wave off 1 attack or maybe even more. 3 is so you never know. I think that this card I see it as a lot of potential. It's like I think it's the first card that's dropped that blue can play now. Blue villain can play on their I've been messing before. Honestly, I'll be completely honest. Before this Blue Vader thing started getting out of hand, I just made a Blue Vader deck, and I was so excited about it. It looked so fun, and I was playing it. I was testing it, loved it. The very, very next day, the guy wins the 5K with a Blue Vader deck, and everyone starts buying up the cards, and I'm like, man, if I didn't play somebody in my local group on Tabletop Simulator the night before, they'd never believe me. They'd think that I'm full of crap.
Yeah, they think you're a trend follower.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I legit was, but this card is like, I think aggro puts up a really good fight against control. Aggro obviously wanting to finish the game out as fast as possible. Control trying to keep their lives. their life as high as possible. And with blue having a lot of restore units and trying to keep the game going as long as possible, this just to stall out those first couple of turns can be the difference between winning and losing, I think. So
yeah, it could be.
Again, I think you guys have a better insight, but that's the way I see it. Somebody from my...
The one other thing I'll say about this guy is he has the Underworld trait, which currently doesn't do anything, but I think there's a good chance that we're going to see some Underworld trait synergy in this set, given its overall theme, and that might make a difference.
Yeah, we might see a Java leader and other things, so...
As it stands, if this guy were an Imperial, I think he would be a lot better in the current pool, but maybe the Underworld trait will start doing more in this upcoming set.
I think that's what we surmised, too. That the shadows are a lot more Underworld oriented, and that we'll definitely be seeing a lot of synergy with Underworld. Yeah.
So cool. I wanted to ask Tower, you have any questions for us? Since you were listening to our podcast, so you probably have something to say or ask.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what your overall outlook for competitive play for this game is. This is probably more of a question for you, Coach. But I'm curious, are you going to be traveling to the big tournaments and stuff? What are you thinking about that? Because you seem to have a very competitive mindset.
Yeah, I'm really competitive, and traveling is a little bit out of my budget, unfortunately. But at the same time, that's mostly because I live in Canada, so I'm we're 10% of what the United States is, and I can't just travel from here to the United States and back and book hotels and do the whole converting my currency over and so on. It's I would say it's at least maybe 50% more costly for me than other people. And so I do want to go to events, but as I said, my local scene right now, there's nobody playing, which is quite sad. Hopefully that picks up once we get the Mace Windows and stuff coming in, and people want to win the cards, which they won't.
Kids.
Yeah, don't worry. They're not going to touch those kits. They're all mine. But yeah, I definitely do want to. Even with Shatterpoint, I play Shatterpoint. I play this. I play Warhammer. And even for my Warhammer, it's a expensive game, and I can't even travel for that because do I really want to pay $100 for entry fee, then $200 for hotels, then another $100 just to travel? If I'm paying $400 for about 200 prize winning, it's not really worth it. So
Warhammer and miniatures games in general have really bad pricing compared to card games. I don't know why this is, but I mentioned earlier, if you win Flesh and Blood World Championships, you straight up get $100,000 cash.
Yeah.
That's a real amount of money. That's more than a year's wages for a lot of people in this world.
For most people. That's
a large majority of people, in fact. Yeah. And that's a real amount of money. And if you thought you were so competitive that you had a good shot at winning worlds, you might well think, hey, it's going to be worth it even if it costs me $1,000 to go to this event or whatever, but in the world of miniatures, it's crazy. You look at these really big tournaments, and it's this tournament is one of the biggest. This is the biggest series of 40K tournaments, and if you win the whole thing, which would require you to go to a lot of different events, then the prize is a few thousand, I think, for winning the whole tournament circuit with Frontline Gaming. And it's that might not even be your cost for 2 events.
Yeah, so Toronto.
And I'm not saying I'm not trying to insult them. I'm just saying the pricing is very different, and card games have a lot more of it.
Yeah, I don't know why. So I did the calculations, and Toronto Open had about $36,000 worth of entry fee, right? And I was telling my friend, I'm like, they have $36,000 from us paying $100 a pop, basically, or whatever it was. And it's okay, you take all the entry fee, and the top 3 get prizes, but the third place prize, the second place prize was $250 of a box set, which is win a box, basically. When you get 2 boxes of Star Wars, and then you get $100 store credit, which is $350 at most. This is Canadian currency as well. And it's like, where did the money go? It doesn't exist.
Wait, this is for a Star Wars Unlimited event? They're
No,
$100.
this is for a Warhammer event. So if I'm paying $100 to enter your tournament and I win first place and the total like entry fee support was $36,000 or whatever, right? I should be expected to win a crap ton of money, not $350. It doesn't make any sense. And you can say like
I've done some event organizing stuff professionally, not game tournaments, but other sorts of events. The first thing that comes to mind is that venue costs can be very expensive, but I bet they're making money on. I don't know.
Oh no, we did the calculations and 100%. There was like a shit ton of money. Like I'm talking about like $10,000 sitting there after everything, and I'm like, so they must be pocketing $10,000. This is after judges, after everything. Because only a 2-day event and there's only like so many players, and you got to be pocketing $10,000. And it's like if you're renting the train or you're buying the train and you're taking $10,000 to pay off the train you just bought, that's kind of fucked up completely, because at that point you're just getting $10,000 for free. It's like, hey, we're gonna host this event, you're gonna pay for everything, you're gonna win like $300 at the end of the day, we're gonna bank some for ourselves, we're gonna get $10,000 worth of merchandise, and then we can host future events for the exact same loadout and get $10,000 into our own pockets. Now I hope that Warhammer,
I don't know exactly what it looks like. It's possible to me that they are making some money on organizing this stuff.
Yeah, it's very crazy to me, and I was going to start hosting my own event because I'm a very competitive person. I come from card game background, and most of the competitive scene in Warhammer and miniature games are very, very casual. Like they want to show up and play, and they're like, their intent is to lose pretty much, because some of them, I asked them these questions, and their goal is to go like 2-3 or 2-4. They want to win 1 or 2 games at most and lose the rest of their games in like a 6-round tournament.
Why do they want to lose?
Like they don't think they can win. They don't want to put in the effort. It's pretty much your local casuals going to like world championships kind of deal.
Like, it'll be fun to go to this event, but I didn't really do a lot of prep, and I don't. Okay, yeah.
Like they don't care at all, and they're just going there to play, and they're hobbying. And it's kind of like they buy a mat and they go to the event, pay the entry fee to just show off their mat and have fun, which cool, but like the price support should be way more. And I was hoping to change that in my local area, because I was going to give like $1,000 prizes to like, you know, $1,000 prize pools. Because the first event I went to, this is my first Warhammer event I went to, and it was a $50 entry fee. And this is my first tournament ever. It was a GT, so 2-day event. And I went there, I bought food every single day. And then I won the whole event, got first place, tried my best, crushed everybody, and like, you know, sweated for this pretty much, because of my first tournament. I wanted to make an impact on it, and took first place. I only won 100. So I put in $50, had to go there, had to buy food, and then I only won $100 back. I was extremely disappointed. I was like, what the fuck is this, pretty much, like, you know. And so I was hoping to change that in my local area, and I hope Warhammer eventually does change that. Yeah, it's definitely not something like card games, and I don't know what the Warhammer people think.
I think there is one really big factor in the card game world, and that's that the companies that are making these games, I think, view tournament prizing as a marketing expense to some degree. So like Flesh and Blood announced, you know, they're going to give out $1 million or $2 million or whatever it was across the whole season. And for them, I think that is something that's in their marketing budget. You know what I mean? And like Fab Worlds, if you win $100,000 US, I think that their total tickets or whatever for entry, I don't think they're making $100,000 on the event. Like, I think they're just straight up losing money on the event because they consider it a marketing thing, and that's why they can offer such big prizes. Or you hear about, like, what's that game called? It's like Battle Spirit Saga.
Yeah,
so that game is, like, as I understand it, not necessarily the most popular, but they announced really big prizing. You know, I think they were also giving out a bunch of money as essentially a promotional thing for some of these tournaments. And I remember talking to someone on the Star Wars Unlimited community Discord who was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm playing Battle Spirit Saga for the money. You know, they have a bunch of prizes going on here, and that's why I'm involved in that game.
Yeah, and like the Warhammer tournaments I go to, and most of them, like almost every single one of them, are not hosted by the actual like Games Workshop.
Yeah, Games Workshop. Yeah.
Like I can start hosting one, But even then, the price support is it's so crazy. It just doesn't exist at all. Like, and in fact,
I bet if GW wanted to, they absolutely could say, hey guys, $1 million in prizes for our tournament circuit. The Warhammer 40K World Champion gets $100,000. They could do it easily, and they just don't want to.
The World Champion, actually, they just started doing World Championships in the person who won it gets every single product that is released in the next 3 years. He gets every single product that is released, shipped, and the guy who won it owns a store, and he's obviously really, really good, and so he's gonna just have free product lined up for everything for like whatever. So he's gonna be like rolling in bank, but which is fine. But I would like the other organizers, like if you're going to a local game store and I'm putting up $5 or $10 to like play in the tournament, I expect to win something if there's enough people, not just win $20. Like if I win $20 and I put up 10. Why am I taking first place? I might as well stay home and order McDonald's or something.
Yeah, although I think a lot of people consider like the fun of playing in a tournament and the bragging rights of first place to be worth something, even if there isn't a big prize. Especially some of the less competitively minded people who aren't necessarily thinking of this in terms of EV and stuff.
Yeah, but once you get to regionals and stuff, I would expect the prizes to be better, and they're not in Warhammer. It's absolutely horrible.
Well, I mean, there's some better, but they're not they're not on the level of some of these card games.
Yeah.
Actually, it's an interesting question. Do you expect there's going to be cash prizes in this game? I think it's not clear. They haven't announced one way or the other. They were normally Fantasy Flight's LCGs didn't have cash prizes, but Keyforged, which was a weird sort of game that they were making, did intend to have cash prizes, though I believe they were never actually given because the season that was going to have those got canceled thanks to the virus crisis in 2020.
Yeah, so I personally think that this game needs to have cash prizes, because as much as you want to give boosters away, the big thing about card games and what like other card games as well, even right now the hype is 5K. It's like you can win a case, but the case is cool, but in another year or so, like once buy a case or when a case goes down, it's like I don't just want to go to a national tournament or something and just win a case. Like winning a cool card or like a gold foil or something really expensive or one of a kind is very cool. So I do want to see that, but I also want to see cash prizes, because it's not cheap for somebody to go book a hotel for 2-3 days or fly across from somewhere else. And then it also invites people from like Europe, if they do want to compete in like the biggest tournament for $5,000-$10,000 plus whatever. I'm willing to take a trip to a $10,000 tournament and try to win it or get top placing, because it's gonna be worth it for me. I'm not willing to spend $500, $1,000 to go travel to try and win $1,000. Like that's not worth it to me.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's a cool thing for I think it's a cool thing for tournaments to have. I think that I think we're already seeing some events like this from the community, but like the stores that are doing like the 1K or the 5K event or the like win a case event or something like that, where someone might travel at least a bit for something like that. And I'm hoping that for some of the bigger official events, the prizes get even more and we see people traveling from even further.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that.
I'm sure I'm sure it's going in that direction. It's catching on like wildfire, the game. So I would not be surprised to see actual cash prize support.
I am a big fan. Even if I'm super competitive, I still am a big fan of promo cards or promo art, like whatever. So I do hope to keep like seeing alternate art, promo art, whatever. That they're going to be doing. It's like, and if there is a national level event, I do want to see like somebody winning a showcase Vader, and you can only win those from those. I think that's what they'll be. So I hope to get my hands on a showcase Vader eventually.
There is, I had seen some speculation or whatever that there was going to be a showcase Luke and showcase Vader that were organized play promos from some kind of higher level event, though. Yeah. Not sure if that will end up being the case.
Localized seems a bit odd for a showcase.
Yeah, I think it was maybe going to be I don't know what the specific thing is, but yeah.
We shall have to wait and see.
Yeah.
That would be nice though. Showcase Vader. Tower. Dude, I don't want to keep you longer than we had you, man. The fact that you gave us an hour and a half of your time is awesome and much appreciated. Oh.
Hey, yeah, happy to be here, man. Fun conversation.
Yeah, well, make sure to, post the link, give the shout outs.
Yeah, I'll do it. I actually do. Let me know when the episode goes up, and I'll throw up one of those like community posts or whatever on my channel and tell people, hey, I just did an interview with such and such.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
that would mean a lot to us. Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love your content. Coach is starting to Coach, I think Coach, you've been watching his stuff now for a while. I kind of started watching you as soon as you started posting SWU content, and I go back to Coach and I'm like, oh, this guy TowerNumberNine this is what he said or whatever. So I think Coach is gonna start watching your stuff now too. He obviously already started. So yeah, we love your content, your insight. You're obviously a gem for us here in the community, so we're behind you, man. Keep killing it. Before we sign off, Coach, any final words for our special guest here?
Appreciate you being on the show. And is there anything you want to plug or have us, post in the link in the comment section or whatever the bio?
I just say, hey, check out my channel if you haven't already over at TowerNumberNine on YouTube. One word, all spelled out. And hope to see some of you there.
Yeah, appreciate you being on the show.
For sure. Yeah. Again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. To the people who are watching, yeah, that's TowerNumberNine. I'll leave his channel in the description. This is probably more for my local guys rather than the majority of anyone watching this. I hope a lot of your viewers come over and see this as well. But yeah, if you don't know TowerNumberNine, head over there. I'll leave his channel in the description. Subscribe to his stuff. Seriously, top-notch mind right here, and great takes on the game that we all love.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. TowerNumberNine, buddy, thank you so much for being on the show. Have a good night, day, everyone. Depending on what time you're seeing this, we'll see you next week. The show, by the way, Tower drops on Fridays, so I edit them. Usually takes me a couple hours, and not even like 15 minutes. I just make sure that anything that doesn't need to be in there is out of there, and I put some music in the background. I call it a day. But I will, I'll notify you definitely when it drops. I'll leave you with a random fact before we leave. Did you know that honey never spoils?
I heard that, but I didn't know if it's true. Is that true?
That is true. Pots of honey have been found in ancient Egypt, in Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly edible.
That's wild.
Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff, this earth that we live in. So thank you again, guys, for watching. Everybody have a great night. Tower, take care, buddy.
Thank you so much. Catch you later.
You got it.